Now that Boruto Part 1 is officially over, and as of this recording, the time skip is mere weeks away from happening, I thought now would be a really good time to talk about just how absolutely crack Boruto Uzumaki is at the end of Boruto Part 1. This won't be a full comparison video to 12-year-old Naruto and 13-year-old Naruto, but for reference, if we can hit 4,000 likes on this video within a week of uploading, I will make a video going over Part 1 Boruto versus every version of Naruto to see how far Boruto gets running the Naruto gauntlet. So at the age of 12, Boruto without the power of the Karma Seal is already really strong, stronger than he gets credit for. To just use Kakashi's statement in the anime when he says that Boruto is easily stronger than a Genin or a Chunin, that's a severe understatement of his power. That 12-year-old Boruto graduating from the academy started out with a comp of being above Chunin level, but not being in a Jonin tier, which honestly made sense just given earlier in the academy arc we saw Boruto getting folded up no difficulty by Hanabi, one of the more skilled Jonin from Naruto's generation, so we know that Kakashi's assessment is actually correct. Boruto is somewhere above Chunin but below Jonin level, which I do think many of us would say is actually believable. Shortly after this, when Team 7 was fighting against Mirai, Boruto and company in a one-on-one fight against Mirai do halfway decently, which it should be worth noting that in both the Konoha Shinden novel as well as the manga version of that story, Mirai is implied to be extremely talented, with Kakashi taking note of her at a very young age, and with the Konoha Shinden and Shikamaru Shinden, a cloud dancing in forlorn falling petals, going so far as to say that she's the most talented that we've seen in the Sarutobi clan since the era of the third Hokage. While obviously she's not as strong as the third Hokage, she's growing at a rate where there's debate going on in Konoha as if she's actually surpassed her father Asuma, despite her only being 15 years old. Despite this, Boruto slapboxed against Mirai, and eventually he and Team 7 ended up dogging Mirai in that fight, the personal bodyguard for the 6th Hokage Kakashi and the alternating bodyguard for Naruto. When we jump ahead to the versus Momoshiki arc, when we look at the version of the story in the Boruto movie, we're literally told by the narrator that both Boruto and Sarada have the striking power and the skill of Jonin and are expected to do extremely well in the upcoming Chunin exams, which makes a lot of sense when we look at Boruto. Boruto by this point in the story is bragging to Naruto in the Boruto manga that he's already mastered 3 changes in chakra nature in the manga. For reference, you aren't expected to know a change in chakra nature until you're a Chunin, and when you become a Jonin, you are expected to possess a bare minimum of 2 changes in chakra nature, but Boruto at the age of 12 already has 3 changes in chakra nature. The significance of this should not be lost on you, and I'll explain to you why. If we take the Boruto statement of him having Jonin level striking power and skill and just say he's at the bare minimum entry point for being a Jonin caliber shinobi, that's enough to have Boruto drop back in time and have him defeat members of the Sound 4 from the Sasuke retrieval arc. Those same Sound 4, for reference, had to go into the curse mark state 2 in order to defeat 2 exhausted special Jonin who had just finished a mission. Despite the title of special Jonin, they're actually weaker than your standard Jonin. If you think back to the battles with the Sound 4, you saw exactly how strong second state curse mark actually makes members of the Sound 4. So right there, Boruto in the opening arc of the manga is already cracked enough that he can take on antagonists that we had in the final part of Boruto Part 1, and this is before he even gets the Karma Seal. This same Boruto then proceeds to create the Vanishing Rasengan by accident by making lightning release change in chakra nature get added to the Rasengan, and is undergoing direct training under Sasuke at this point, who's already taken note of Boruto's potential. Now, one thing that does get brought up with this version of Boruto is the fact that he doesn't have Naruto's monstrous chakra reserves to make 1,000 shadow clones, which that is a fair thing to criticize, but it's important to remember that Naruto on his own was already a monster in terms of chakra levels, something a lot of people to this day still don't realize, because we've seen the first chapter of the manga without using any of Kurama's chakra, he's able to make 1,000 shadow clones on his own, and given both of his parents, Minato and Kushina, both have high levels of chakra, and we learn later on in Naruto's manga that Naruto's own natural chakra levels are 4 times that of an elite Jonin when Kakashi is teaching him what change in chakra nature is, and elsewhere in the manga we're told that Naruto's own natural chakra levels are enough to contain 1/2 of Kurama itself. That's not an insult, but it does lead to people downplaying Boruto's chakra reserves. However, when we look in universe, more than once in the series we see characters in Boruto's own generation remarking at his stamina levels and chakra levels, showing that while his own reserves are not as high as Naruto, something that even Kakashi says, you don't have Naruto's enormous chakra levels, that's still larger than average, something that Boruto's anime later on confirms when it tells us that Boruto's body can withstand Sage Mode training, which we know from the statements in Naruto's manga, you need a large chakra pool just to attempt Sage Mode training itself. The multi-shadow clone jutsu was initially declared a forbidden jutsu by the first Hokage, and as a jutsu that we learn in Naruto chapter 100 is considered to be safe only for Jonin to use in most cases. That's the whole reason why the people in the audience were impressed by Naruto using the jutsu as a Genin. It's a jutsu that you need Jonin levels of chakra to perform, and Boruto's able to produce 4 shadow clones repeatedly while using that jutsu. In fact, when we consider the events of the Boruto anime in episode 6, Boruto, even after having his chakra absorbed, still had enough chakra to make 4 shadow clones, which is low-key a testament to him coming from both the Uzumaki clan as well as the Hyuga clan bloodlines. When we look at the other material from the era of the Momoshiki era, Boruto is written in the promotional one-shot Boruto Road to B as being an elite shinobi who excels in all areas of combat, which again makes sense given that the official novelization for the movie is written by Ukyo Kodachi, the man who will write a majority of Boruto Part 1. That novelization referred to him as being in a Jonin class, so all of this is tracking consistent here. It's also worth noting that in the post-credit scene for the Boruto anime that follows the battle with fused Momoshiki, Urashiki literally calls Boruto a threat to people on the Otsuki tier, though that's likely due to Boruto's growing potential at the time because he showed in the Momoshiki fight that while he was the weakest shinobi on the battlefield between his vanished Rasengan, his tactics using the shadow clones and the brief amp that the Jogan gave him, Boruto was able to land the finishing blow on Momoshiki after he'd been worked by Naruto and Sasuke, and Boruto showed the skill to wield a massive amount of chakra Naruto gave him for the Rasengan to finish off Momoshiki, though the recoil from that chakra was enough to show that Boruto could not actually handle wielding that amount of chakra right now. Now we get further evidence of Boruto being in this Jonin class when we look at the Mujina Bandits arc and the battle with Shojoji, where if we include the Shikamaru statement from the Shikamaru Shinden story, we're told that Shikamaru and the Anbu Black Ops directly scaled Shojoji's power to being on par with Mirai's teams. So Mirai and the team that comprised the 2 Jonin and 1 other Chunin besides Mirai, Shikamaru believed that Mirai's Genjutsu would be enough to give them the advantage in there, otherwise implying that Shojoji was equal to all of them combined. So with Shojoji, we have someone who is easily above that Jonin level of a threat. By Shikamaru's analysis, Boruto walks into the battle with Shojoji and more than holds his own against Shojoji for an extended period of time, showing that if you believed he was merely at the entry point for the Jonin level in the Momoshiki arc, he's grown stronger by the events of the Mujina Bandits arc, and for a time Boruto was actually pressuring Shojoji, and with only a base Rasengan he was able to briefly stun Shojoji and destroy a chunk of the hideout with that jutsu, despite it being implied that Shojoji used his wind barrier in order to at the last second tank the brunt of the damage from the Rasengan. By the time we get to the Ao arc, we see a further escalation of Boruto moving up those Jonin ranks of power yet again. This time it comes from the battle with Ao. Ao in Naruto's manga was stated to be an elite Jonin from the Hidden Mist village. Ao was able to take down the Yamanaka clan member who was Danzo's number 3 en route, with it being implied in Naruto's manga that both Torin and Fu were stronger than Sai, and as we saw at the start of Shippuden during the Tenchi Bridge arc, Sai was in the ballpark with base Naruto during that time, with Danzo outright saying in the manga that Sai and Naruto were the 2 strongest of their generation amongst the active Konoha shinobi, which at that time that includes Rock Lee and Neji after the time skip. Ao took down Fu despite the latter having prep time and being the 3rd strongest member of Root, once again proving the claims of Ao being an elite Jonin were actually warranted. The version of Ao who fights Boruto is now enhanced by Kara's ninja tech, giving him a boost in speed and power, whereas Ao was dogging out Mujino, a Jonin specialist, and Konohama, who despite the memes is considered to be one of Konoha's elite Jonin. Boruto is shown going back and forth with Ao in taijutsu more than holding his own, and when Ao resorts to using ninja tech and drones, Boruto efficiently uses his 3 changes in chakra nature to take down those drones, and we get a major sign that Boruto at this point in time is beginning to knock on the door of being Kage level. We were told in Naruto Part 1 during that battle of Hiruzen versus Edo Tensei 1st and 2nd Hokage that the sign of a Kage level shinobi was being able to use change in chakra nature like water release to generate high volumes of water without being near a body of water itself. Boruto is able to generate a large water release jutsu that you could compare it to that weekend Edo Tensei Tobirama who slapboxed with the third Hokage. All of this is prior to even tapping into the power of karma. We see Boruto's own power was already in that upper Jonin level by age 12, even if you downplay the water release speed as not being a Kage level feat, despite Naruto's manga telling us otherwise. There's enough there to say that base Boruto is already in that upper Jonin level, meaning he's knocking on the door of that level of power that you saw Haku, Zabuza, and Part 1 Kakashi had, which isn't an insult given that those are literally some of the strongest characters in Naruto Part 1. So right now you have Boruto being well above the Sound 4, but below people like Haku in Part 1 Kakashi and Part 1 Might Guy. And that's also worth noting, that's only if you lowball Boruto. So by this point in the story, just prior to those events even occurring, when Kakashi was training Boruto to make the Wind Rasengan and the Compression Rasengan, after Kakashi sees Boruto Compression Rasengan has the destructive force to break through Shojoji's high-level wind release shield that previously was able to tank a pair of Rasengans at point-blank range, Kakashi states that Boruto has created a Rasengan that is lethal, and when he sees how quickly Boruto's grown, he flat out states that Boruto has clearly inherited Minato's genius and growth rate, which after seeing that Minato one-shot manga, we see how high of a praise that is from Kakashi. When we get to Karma Seal Boruto, that's where the power level of Boruto begins to start skyrocketing. The Karma Seal takes Boruto from being in upper Jonin level to being in that Kage territory of power, and that's before Boruto's karma is utilized properly via True Essence Boruto. For comparison, Boruto and Kawaki, when they use karma, more than once are implied to be somewhat relative to each other in terms of power, but Boruto is lacking for obvious reasons behind Kawaki in terms of skill utilizing the power of karma. A fatigued Kawaki using the Karma Seal was able to destroy the androids that Konohamaru and Mujino were almost killed by, and Boruto and Team 7 working together had a noticeable degree of difficulty actually defeating. Kawaki takes down those drones like it's nothing, and during his battle with Garou, a fatigued Kawaki using the Karma Seal is scaled by Konohamaru as being S-class, which in the Naruto world is a threat level that requires a elite Jonin or a Kage level shinobi to deal with that situation. Through training to use karma, we see Boruto begin to level up, where he's starting to keep up with and fight relative to Kawaki using karma, putting him in that Kage tier of power. Which Kage you want to rank him against, that's debatable, but we see that it's enough that base Naruto, who was previously toying around with Boruto, now has to brace himself when blocking Boruto's attacks and has to resort to using a shadow clone in order to block Boruto's thunderclap arrow. While Naruto is clearly stronger than Karma Seal Boruto, Naruto could no longer use the bare minimum effort, flat out saying that the power increase was very noticeable and impressive. Essentially, what we learn here is that the bare minimum boost in power when using the karma is enough to boost Boruto quite a bit. However, the Karma Seal Boruto has for a large portion of Boruto Part 1 been substantially weaker than Borishiki, which is the version of Boruto who takes over Boruto's body. That version of Boruto is able to casually make a giant Rasengan and instantly kill a transformed full power Rage Mode Boro, and in the battle with Code, Borishiki is casually spamming the giant Rasengan throughout that battle, a clear difference between himself and Boruto. It's through all the training that takes place that we see Boruto's now grown strong enough that his super compression Rasengan is able to briefly hold up against Ishiki's chakra cubes, though he would have eventually been squashed by it. Don't get that twisted. By the time Boruto begins to start tapping into the incomplete version of True Essence Karma, he's now being shown strong enough to speed blitz Code more than once in pressure Code, despite Code being a Kara cyborg whose body has been amplified by the Ninja Tech of Kara, as well as the white Karma Seal that gives Code the basic power amp of the Karma Seal itself. This same Code was stated in universe to be strong enough that the belief is that he's powerful enough to defeat Hokage Naruto, who doesn't have Kurama, but Code himself is doubtful he can defeat the duo of Naruto and Sasuke post Rinnegan and post Nine Tails. By this point, the incomplete True Essence Karma Seal Boruto is arguably stronger than Naruto without Kurama, but weaker than the duo of Naruto and Sasuke, and it's implied that Sasuke was still strong enough that he could have defeated Borishiki had his feelings of Boruto not gotten in the way. So there's even more room to say that incomplete True Essence Karma Seal Boruto is still weaker than Naruto without Kurama and weaker than Sasuke without the Rinnegan. In particular, if you view that Code versus that version of Boruto fight and say that Code is stronger than True Essence Boruto, which I think there's a stronger argument for that. I just want to present both sides of that argument for you. By the end of Boruto Part 1, we see that Boruto, while weaker than Kawaki, who now has more mastery of the Karma Seal and can manifest Ishiki's dojutsu in his eye, Boruto is now able to make a giant Rasengan on his own without needing Momoshiki to be in control, but it is implied in the final fight against Boruto and Kawaki, Boruto's still weaker than Kawaki, who at this point is the third strongest character remaining in Boruto, going by Shikamaru's words, saying no one in Konoha, including Naruto, are now stronger than Kawaki, with Damon showing that he's stronger than Kawaki and it being implied that Code without limiters is stronger than Boruto and Kawaki, which that version of Code with his limiters taken off is stronger than the Jigen who beat Naruto and Sasuke in episode 204. However, what you should see here is Boruto Uzumaki, even without factoring in the Karma Seal, was already an extremely powerful shinobi for his age, but with the Karma Seal he's reached those Otsutsuki levels of power, which is absolutely impressive.